She was just an ICU nurse until the night she walked out of a Texas hospital with $12 million in criminal cash and vanished. No cameras, no witnesses, and the FBI still has no idea how she did it. Stay until the end, because you'll see how a single mother turned her nursing skills into the perfect heist, outsmarted a cartel, and vanished so completely the FBI still can't find her. And when you hear the real reason she risked everything, it will leave you speechless. Subscribe if you know what it's like to work without days off for months. Like this video if you remember times when you worked 12-hour shifts for pennies while rich people got richer. It all started 6 months earlier at Memorial General Hospital in El Paso. 3:17 a.m. The ER doors burst open as paramedics wheeled in a gunshot victim, critical, unconscious, and his friends shoved a thick envelope of cash into the nurse's hands. That nurse was Isabella Rodriguez, and that night would change everything. Isabella Rodriguez pushed through the emergency room doors as paramedics wheeled in another Saturday night case. Trauma victim, unconscious, critical condition. After 12 years as an ICU nurse, she'd seen it all. Gang violence, domestic disputes, deals gone wrong. But this one felt different. "What do we got?" she asked, snapping on fresh gloves with practiced efficiency. Miguel Vasquez, age unknown, multiple trauma injuries to the chest and abdomen. Friends dropped him off 15 minutes ago and disappeared before we could get any information. No insurance, but they left this. The paramedic handed her a manila envelope thick with cash. Isabella's eyebrows shot up as she opened it. $50,000, in hundreds. She'd been nursing for 12 years and never seen anything like it. Who carries $50,000 in cash to pay for emergency surgery? As she worked to stabilize the patient, IV lines, blood pressure monitoring, preparing him for emergency surgery, she overheard his friends talking rapidly in Spanish near the waiting room. Her Army medic training in Afghanistan had taught her the language, and what she heard made her blood run cold. The shipment better be protected while he's unconscious. $50 million is moving through the hospital accounts tonight. If he talks, $50 million through hospital accounts. Isabella kept working on the patient, but her mind was racing. Memorial General was a mid-sized hospital serving El Paso's working-class neighborhoods. They handled maybe $20 million in total annual revenue. They didn't move $50 million in a single night, ever. The patient was stable enough for surgery within an hour, but Isabella couldn't shake what she'd heard. Over the next week, she started paying attention to the billing system she'd been using for years, without really thinking about it. That's when she noticed the pattern that would change her life forever. John Doe patients, all paying massive cash amounts. Same billing codes for procedures that seemed routine. All discharged to Border Recovery Solutions, a rehabilitation facility that sounded legitimate until Isabella tried to look it up. It didn't exist in any medical database she could find. No address, no phone number, no licensing records with the state medical board. The gunshot victim, Miguel Vasquez, was unconscious for 3 days while recovering from surgery. On the second night, during Isabella's shift, he dropped his phone while shifting in bed. The screen lit up automatically, and Isabella's heart stopped. Banking notifications covered the display. $2.3 million transfer complete, and account balance $47 million. This wasn't just some gang member who got shot in a turf war. This was someone handling serious cartel money. $47 million in a single account, with multi-million-dollar transfers happening while he slept in their ICU. Isabella stared at the phone, then at the unconscious man. She'd treated hundreds of patients over the years, but never one carrying around $50 million in banking apps. The implications hit her like a physical blow. This hospital, her hospital, was being used to launder drug money. That night, alone in the ICU at 3 a.m., Isabella made a decision that would transform her from a law-abiding nurse into one of the most wanted women in America. She created a fake patient account in the billing system, Maria Santos, and submitted a $3,000 bill to the same payment processing system the cartel was using. Her hands shook as she filled out the forms. Medical supplies for emergency care. She held her breath and clicked submit. The payment processed automatically within minutes. No verification calls, no approval needed, no questions asked. $3,000 appeared in her hospital department's discretionary account within 6 hours. Jesus Christ, she whispered to herself in the empty ICU, staring at the confirmation screen. The whole system was automated. The cartel had turned Memorial General into their personal money laundering machine, and nobody was watching. But someone was about to start watching her. The next morning, CEO Marcus Webb pulled her aside in the hallway. He was a thin, nervous man in his 50s who'd been running Memorial General for 8 years. Isabella had always thought he seemed overwhelmed by the job. "Isabella, you've been working a lot of late shifts lately. Everything okay at home?" Her heart hammered against her ribs. Did he know? Had he seen something in the billing records? "Just catching up on paperwork, Mr. Webb. You know how behind we get during busy periods." He studied her face with an intensity that made her skin crawl. "Right. Well, don't burn yourself out. We need our best nurses, fresh and focused. Patient care is our top priority after all." The way he said patient care made it sound like a joke. She forced a smile and walked away, but she could feel his eyes on her back. That night, Isabella used the unconscious cartel enforcer's fingerprint to unlock his phone completely. What she found made her hands shake so badly she almost dropped the device. The phone contained a digital labyrinth of criminal enterprise that made her blood run cold. Bank accounts with hundreds of millions of dollars spread across 12 different countries: Switzerland, Panama, the Cayman Islands, Singapore. Each account showed constant activity: deposits from various medical facilities across the Southwest, transfers to weapons dealers, payments to corrupt officials. But it was the communication logs that truly terrified her. Detailed text message threads between El Medico, clearly Marcus Webb, and cartel leadership. Screenshots of hospital patient records being sold to hitmen. GPS coordinates of witness protection safe houses. Even photos of federal marshals with prices on their heads. The money flow documentation was staggering in its complexity. Memorial General wasn't just laundering drug money. It was the central hub of a network spanning 8 states. Fake medical supply companies, fabricated patient treatments, pharmaceutical kickbacks, insurance fraud. Every transaction meticulously documented. Every dollar traced from cocaine sales to clean bank accounts. And worst of all, a target list of witnesses who'd been treated at Memorial General, then systematically eliminated after discharge. The list contained detailed medical records, discharge dates, home addresses, family information, and confirmation photos of completed operations. 15 names, 15 people who'd been patients at Memorial General, recovered from their injuries, been discharged, and then disappeared within weeks. At the bottom of the list, in fresh entries from the past month, Miguel Rodriguez, age 16, witness protection compromised, eliminate before trial. Miguel Rodriguez, her son. Isabella's world collapsed in that moment. She slumped against the wall, phone clutched in her trembling hands as the full scope of the nightmare became clear. Her son had witnessed a criminal organization's operation 6 months earlier. He'd been in federal witness protection ever since, hidden away while prosecutors built their case. She'd been told he was safe, protected, that the criminals didn't know where he was. They'd been lying. The organization knew exactly where Miguel was, and they were planning to eliminate him. Isabella's phone rang at 2:17 a.m. the next Tuesday. U.S. Marshal Patricia Wong's voice was tight with barely controlled panic. "Isabella, we have a serious problem. Miguel's safe house location was compromised. We're moving him to a new facility immediately. But I need to be completely honest with you. We can't guarantee his safety much longer. These people have sources everywhere, including inside federal agencies." Isabella's knees buckled. She sat down hard on her kitchen floor, still in her scrubs from the night shift. "What exactly are you telling me?" "I'm saying you need to prepare for the possibility that witness protection isn't going to work. They've already killed 3 other kids who were supposed to testify against this organization. The leak is coming from inside the system somewhere." "How long do we have?" "Maybe weeks, maybe less." "I'm sorry, Isabella. We're doing everything we can, but these people have resources we can't match." The line went dead, leaving Isabella alone in her dark kitchen with a truth that felt like ice water in her veins. The federal government couldn't protect her son. The most powerful law enforcement apparatus in the world was helpless against a drug cartel with enough money to buy anyone they needed. The next morning, Isabella found photos of Miguel taped to her car windshield. School photos from his witness protection placement with red crosshairs drawn over his face in what looked like blood. A note was attached. "Your son is a liability. Fix this problem or we fix it permanently." You have 48 hours to make him disappear quietly, or we do it loudly. That's when Isabella Rodriguez, 38-year-old single mother and ICU nurse, decided to take millions of dollars from the most dangerous people in North America. But she wasn't going to do it stupidly. Her military training had taught her that the best operations are planned methodically, with multiple contingencies and careful attention to detail. If she was going to commit the crime of the century, she was going to do it right. She started small, testing the system's vulnerabilities. Over the next 2 weeks, she created 5 fake billing entries, each one carefully crafted to look legitimate. $8,000 for emergency patient transport services, backdated to match a real trauma case, $12,000 for specialized medical consulting, submitted during a busy night shift, $18,000 for emergency surgical supplies, tied to actual surgeries performed that week, $25,000 for specialized diagnostic equipment, processed during a system maintenance window, $35,000 for trauma care materials, authorized during a multi-car accident that created chaos. Each payment processed smoothly through the cartel's automated system. No flags, no questions, no human oversight. The money laundering operation was so sophisticated that it couldn't distinguish between real hospital expenses and carefully crafted fakes. Total stolen in 2 weeks, $98,000. It was nothing compared to the millions flowing through daily, but it proved something crucial. The system worked and she could beat it. But it also proved something else. She was walking a tightrope over an abyss, and one wrong step would kill her. Security guard Rosa Martinez almost caught her during the third theft. Isabella was in the hospital billing department at 3:15 a.m., hunched over a computer terminal as she processed another fake invoice. The building was supposed to be empty except for essential medical staff, but she heard footsteps echoing down the corridor outside. Rosa's flashlight beam swept under the door. Isabella's heart stopped as she realized she'd forgotten to lock the door behind her in her nervousness. She dove under the desk, laptop clutched against her chest, barely breathing as Rosa tried the door handle. The door swung open, and Isabella could see Rosa's boots just feet away from her hiding spot. Must have forgotten to lock it during shift change, Rosa muttered to herself, clicking the door shut and moving on with her rounds. Isabella waited 10 full minutes before moving again. Her hands were shaking so badly she could barely type, but she'd gotten away with it. She was invisible to them, just another night shift nurse doing paperwork. Time to go bigger. The next week, Isabella attempted her first major theft, $150,000 for specialized trauma equipment. She spent hours crafting an elaborate fake emergency scenario, multiple car accident victims requiring immediate specialized care, emergency procurement of surgical equipment that couldn't wait for normal approval processes. She submitted the request at 2:30 a.m. on a busy Saturday night when the ER was flooded with cases and nobody was paying attention to routine administrative tasks. The transfer processed automatically, but generated an automatic alert to Marcus Webb's email because of the large amount. Monday morning, Marcus called her into his office. Isabella's mouth went dry as he turned his computer screen toward her, showing the alert notification. Do you know anything about this large equipment purchase, Isabella? It's flagged for an unusual amount and timing. Her mind raced. Think fast. Be calm. Sound natural. Yes, we had multiple trauma cases Tuesday night after that pile-up on I-10. Dr. Morrison authorized emergency procurement of surgical equipment. 3 critical patients needed immediate surgery, and we didn't have adequate supplies. Marcus frowned, checking his calendar. Morrison, he transferred to Dallas Presbyterian last month. Shit. Fatal mistake. I mean Dr. Chen, sorry. I'm exhausted from pulling so many doubles. Dr. Chen authorized it during the emergency. Marcus studied her face for what felt like forever. She forced herself to maintain eye contact, to look tired but confident, like a nurse who'd just worked a brutal shift saving lives. Right, well, make sure all emergency procurements go through proper channels next time. We can't have unauthorized purchases, even during emergencies. Of course, Mr. Webb. Patient care comes first, but I understand the importance of following procedures. Isabella walked out of his office feeling like she might throw up, but the $150,000 was sitting in her shell company account. She'd passed the first real test, but she'd also learned something crucial. She needed Marcus Webb's direct authorization codes for larger amounts. The system had automatic thresholds, and she was approaching the limits of what she could steal without higher-level approval. During routine IT maintenance the following week, Isabella volunteered to help update the hospital's computer systems. As a senior nurse with administrative access, she had legitimate reasons to be working on the servers. What she was really doing was installing advanced keylogger software on Marcus's computer. Within days, she had access to everything: his passwords, his banking codes, his email, and most importantly, his emergency authorization protocols that could bypass normal approval processes during medical emergencies. Time for the real test. Using Marcus's stolen codes, Isabella authorized a $400,000 transfer for emergency medical transport services. She backdated it to coincide with a real helicopter transport that had happened the previous week, making it look like a delayed billing entry. But this amount triggered both an automatic alert and required secondary confirmation within 24 hours. The next day, Marcus was standing right next to her at the nurse's station when his phone buzzed with the confirmation request. Isabella watched in terror as he pulled out his phone and frowned at the screen. "I don't remember authorizing this large transport payment." Her heart hammered as she forced herself to sound casual. "Oh, that's the helicopter transport from last Tuesday's multi-car accident. You signed the authorization during all that chaos, remember? 3 kids had to be airlifted to Dallas Children's Hospital." Marcus looked confused, scrolling through his phone. "Last Tuesday? Right, that was insane. I can barely remember my own name from that shift. 15 trauma patients in 4 hours." He clicked confirm without thinking about it further. "Right. Good work on that night, by the way. You probably saved lives with how quickly you processed everything." $400,000 transferred to her accounts. Just like that. Isabella was getting dangerously good at this. Over the next month, she developed an increasingly sophisticated system. She created detailed fake patient records to support each transaction, complete with medical histories and treatment plans. She timed her thefts during the busiest periods when oversight was minimal and everyone was focused on actual medical emergencies. She studied Marcus's authorization patterns and learned to mimic them exactly: his preferred wording, his timing, even his typos. Most importantly, she created alibis. Every time she made a major theft, she ensured she was visibly treating real patients, creating an unshakable cover story for her presence in the hospital during off hours. The weekend of the hospital's annual donor conference in Miami provided the perfect opportunity. All the executives would be out of town, leaving minimal administrative staff and reduced oversight of financial systems. Isabella planned her boldest move yet, stealing over $1 million in a single night. Saturday, 2:15 a.m. With all the executives 3 time zones away, Isabella created her most elaborate fake emergency yet: a mass casualty event requiring immediate procurement of emergency medical supplies. Chemical spill at a nearby factory, multiple victims requiring specialized treatment, federal emergency declaration authorizing immediate spending without normal approval processes. She authorized 6 simultaneous transfers ranging from $150,000 to $250,000 each, all tied to the fake emergency and supported by detailed fake patient records and treatment protocols. Total $1.1 million stolen in one night. But the automated system, programmed to flag unusual patterns, sent an emergency alert to the hospital board chair at 3:17 a.m. about unprecedented financial activity during low staffing period. Board chair William Morrison called Marcus at his hotel room in Miami. Isabella monitored the entire conversation through her keylogger software, listening in horror as Marcus groggily answered the phone. "Marcus, I'm getting alerts about over $1 million in emergency spending tonight. What's going on?" Isabella held her breath as Marcus mumbled into the phone, clearly woken from deep sleep. $1 million? Tonight? Must be. Let me check. Oh, right, the chemical spill emergency. Federal declaration came through around midnight. We had to procure specialized treatment supplies immediately. Chemical spill? I haven't seen any news about that. It was contained quickly. OSHA handled media suppression while they investigated. You know how they are about industrial accidents. Morrison seemed satisfied. All right, just seemed unusual. Good response time, though. That's why we pay you the big bucks. Crisis averted, barely. By Monday morning, Isabella had stolen $2.3 million total over 6 weeks. She felt invincible, like she'd cracked an unbreakable code. But that's when CFO Margaret Chen started investigating what she called irregular spending patterns. Unlike Marcus, Margaret was thorough, methodical, and deeply suspicious of anything that didn't fit established patterns. She ran detailed audits and cross-referenced every unusual transaction with actual medical records, inventory reports, and staffing schedules. What she found made her blood run cold. $2.3 million in questionable medical supply purchases over 6 weeks, with no corresponding increases in hospital inventory. All transactions had been authorized during Isabella Rodriguez's shifts. The shell companies receiving payments had no verifiable business addresses, no employee records, no legitimate business operations. Margaret started reviewing security footage for the nights of large transfers, frame by frame. Isabella realized she was visible on cameras during many of her activities. She'd been careful about the financial systems, but sloppy about physical security. Margaret was building a case that would destroy her. She needed alibis, and she needed them fast. Her solution was brilliant and terrifying. Create real medical emergencies requiring her legitimate presence in the hospital during each theft. She began timing her financial crimes to coincide with actual patient crises, treating real patients while simultaneously executing complex financial theft through automated systems. A heart attack victim needed emergency surgery. Perfect cover for a $200,000 equipment procurement. A car accident victim required trauma care. Ideal timing for a $150,000 emergency supply purchase. She became a master of parallel processing, saving lives with one hand while stealing millions with the other. But Margaret Chen was getting closer every day, and Isabella knew she was running out of time. She planned her final, most audacious theft, $3.2 million in a single operation during the next weekend shift change, when oversight was minimal and she could operate with maximum freedom. It would either make her rich enough to disappear forever or get her killed. Sunday night, 1:30 a.m., Isabella executed the most dangerous plan of her life. She'd spent the entire week preparing, creating an elaborate fake multi-hospital emergency requiring unprecedented resource sharing, forging federal emergency declarations, and programming delayed transfers that would execute automatically while she maintained perfect alibis treating real patients. $3.2 million to be transferred using Marcus's Supreme Authorization codes, split across 12 different shell companies to avoid triggering automated fraud detection. Each transfer disguised as legitimate emergency medical procurement for a regional disaster response coordination effort. At exactly 1:47 a.m., while Isabella was in the middle of programming the final transfers, Margaret Chen's car pulled into the hospital parking garage. Isabella's blood turned to ice. Margaret wasn't supposed to be here. She was supposed to be home, asleep, completely unaware of what was happening. Isabella heard footsteps approaching the billing department. She slammed her laptop shut and sprinted down the hallway to the ICU, where the cartel enforcer was still unconscious in bed 3. "Isabella? What are you doing here so late?" Margaret's voice carried a note of suspicion that made Isabella's skin crawl. Mr. Vasquez took a turn for the worse around 1 a.m. Vitals became unstable. Blood pressure dropped significantly. I had to call in additional medical support and coordinate with specialists. Margaret stepped closer, studying Isabella's face in the dim ICU lighting. "What kind of medical support requires you to be in the billing department?" Isabella's phone buzzed with transfer confirmations. $1.8 million had already gone through successfully, but she couldn't check the messages without arousing suspicion. "I had to authorize emergency procurement of specialized blood products. His condition deteriorated rapidly, and we needed rare blood components that aren't normally stocked. Emergency procurement system required immediate payment authorization." Margaret stepped even closer. Isabella could smell her perfume, could see the suspicion in her eyes. "Your laptop is still warm, and I can see a banking application was recently used on your browser." Isabella's heart pounded so hard she was sure Margaret could hear it. Every instinct screamed at her to run, but she forced herself to remain calm, professional, completely focused on the unconscious patient. Emergency procurement system interfaces with the hospital's banking systems. We needed to authorize immediate payment for blood products that normally take days to process. His life depended on speed. Margaret stared at her for what felt like forever. Isabella could see her mental calculations, weighing suspicion against the apparent medical emergency. "I want to see the procurement records first thing Monday morning, and I'm running a complete audit of all financial activity tonight. If anything is irregular, we're calling the FBI immediately." After Margaret left, Isabella had exactly 20 minutes before the night shift change to complete her remaining transfers. Security systems would reset at 2 a.m., potentially exposing her activities to automatic detection. Her hands shook as she reopened her laptop. Only $1.8 million of the planned $3.2 million had transferred. She needed to get the remaining $1.4 million out before the security window closed. 2:17 a.m., using the cartel enforcer's fingerprint one final time, she authorized the last major transfer. 2:19 a.m., she wiped all evidence from hospital computers using military-grade deletion software. 2:20 a.m., she planted encrypted evidence files throughout the hospital's network, programmed to expose the cartel's entire money laundering operation. 2:21 a.m., she activated a delayed release program that would automatically send evidence to 52 news organizations, the FBI, DEA, and medical boards across the country. At exactly 2:25 a.m., Marcus Webb's car pulled into the hospital parking garage. He'd received emergency alerts about massive financial activity and decided to investigate personally instead of waiting until morning. Isabella was calmly checking patient vitals when he found her in the ICU, appearing completely innocent and focused on her medical duties. "Everything okay here tonight, Isabella? I got some unusual alerts about financial activity. Just monitoring Mr. Vasquez closely. His condition has been touch and go all night. We've had to bring in additional medical support and emergency supplies. Touch and go cases like this require constant monitoring and immediate response to any changes." Marcus looked around the ICU, then at his phone showing the financial alerts. The numbers were staggering, but Isabella's explanation seemed to make sense. "Did you have to authorize any emergency purchases tonight?" Dr. Chen ordered additional blood products and emergency medical supplies around 2 a.m. when his condition deteriorated. Life-threatening situation that required immediate intervention? Every minute counted. Marcus nodded slowly, apparently satisfied. "Right. Good work tonight. Sounds like you probably saved his life with how quickly you responded to the crisis." Isabella had just stolen $5.5 million total over 8 weeks. But more importantly, she'd planted evidence that would destroy the cartel's entire money laundering network and expose corruption throughout the medical system. At 4:33 a.m., she clocked out normally, walked calmly to her car, and drove home through the empty El Paso streets. She would never return to Memorial General Hospital as Isabella Rodriguez. Exactly 12 hours later, Isabella's delayed release program activated like a digital time bomb. 52 news organizations across the country received complete corruption files containing bank records, communication logs, patient records, and detailed evidence of the largest medical money laundering operation in U.S. history. The DEA's Financial Crimes Unit got real-time access to over $200 million in active money laundering accounts, complete with transaction histories and cartel communication intercepts. Medical boards in 5 states received evidence of systematic patient safety violations, witness murders, and corruption of medical facilities. The FBI's Organized Crime Task Force got updated cartel hit lists, assassination plans, and detailed intelligence on cartel operations across the Southwest. Within 2 hours, coordinated federal strikes hit cartel operations across 3 states. 47 cartel members were arrested in simultaneous raids. $500 million in assets were frozen across 12 banks. Hospital executives were taken into custody at airports, hotels, and their homes. Marcus Webb, dragged out of his Miami hotel room in handcuffs and facing life in federal prison, immediately confessed everything. Under interrogation, he named cartel contacts, revealed money laundering routes, and exposed similar operations at 8 other hospitals across Texas, New Mexico, and Arizona. The FBI launched the largest manhunt in Southwest history for Isabella Rodriguez. Airport security footage showed her boarding a flight to Bogota under a professionally forged passport bearing the name Maria Santos. Bank records traced her final money transfers to offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands, Switzerland, Panama, Singapore, and 6 other countries. The Sinaloa cartel, facing the complete destruction of their financial network, put a $10 million bounty on her head. Federal agents lost her trail completely in Colombia. Meanwhile, U.S. Marshals extracted Miguel from his compromised safe house exactly 20 minutes before a cartel assault team arrived with orders to eliminate all witnesses. Emergency helicopter airlift to an undisclosed federal facility in Virginia. New identity documents were already prepared, courtesy of his mother's detailed planning. For 6 months, there were unconfirmed sightings of Isabella and Miguel in remote locations. an Argentine village, a Romanian mountain town, a fishing community in coastal Thailand. Each time, cartel assassins arrived within days. Each time they found nothing but locals who'd never heard the names Isabella or Miguel Rodriguez. 2 years later, despite a massive international manhunt involving Interpol, the FBI, and cartel bounty hunters, Isabella and Miguel Rodriguez had successfully vanished from the face of the earth. The FBI admitted publicly that they had no credible leads on her location. The cartel bounty increased to $25 million, but produced no results. Interpol issued global alerts, but found no trace of either mother or son. She became a modern legend, the nurse who beat the cartel. But Isabella Rodriguez wasn't done fighting. Anonymous tips continued leading federal agents to cartel money laundering operations. Medical facilities across the country received mysterious donations, specifically earmarked for uninsured patients. Families in witness protection programs found untraceable financial support appearing in their accounts during their most desperate moments. Law enforcement agencies started calling her the Phantom Nurse. Her evidence had triggered a domino effect that completely destroyed the cartel's financial operations. 340 cartel members were convicted using her financial records and intelligence. $2.8 billion in cartel assets were seized and redistributed to victim compensation funds. The entire medical money laundering network collapsed, forcing cartels to find new, less efficient ways to clean their money. Miguel, now 16 and living under a carefully constructed new identity in an undisclosed European country, excelled in international school and volunteered at a local hospital. He spoke 3 languages fluently and planned to study medicine. "I want to heal people like my mom, but legally." No one at his school knew he was the boy whose life had started a revolution in healthcare transparency. Isabella's case inspired global reform movements. Rodriguez laws were passed in 23 countries requiring real-time financial monitoring of medical facilities. Nurses and doctors worldwide began reporting corruption without fear of retaliation. Medical schools started teaching the Isabella standard of patient advocacy and ethical responsibility. Annual Phantom Nurse Awards honored healthcare whistleblowers who exposed corruption at great personal risk. The last confirmed sighting came from security footage at a Swiss children's hospital. A woman matching Isabella's description, leaving an anonymous $500,000 donation for the pediatric cancer wing, with a note reading, "For the children who deserve better." By the time hospital administrators called police, she had vanished into the crowded streets of Geneva. Before we finish this incredible story, I want to hear from you. Isabella started as just a regular ICU nurse, someone society often overlooks and undervalues, but she proved that ordinary people can do extraordinary things when everything they love is on the line. Write in the comments. How many of you started with simple jobs like janitor, nurse, cashier, security guard, or other invisible roles that keep society running? Sometimes the most powerful people in the world are the ones no one sees coming. Today, somewhere in the world, Isabella Rodriguez treats patients under a carefully constructed new identity in a small clinic. Her FBI-wanted poster still hangs in field offices across 3 continents, but her real reward is measured in the thousands of lives saved by the healthcare reforms her courage inspired. The FBI case file remains officially open. The cartel bounty is still active, though the organization that posted it no longer exists in any meaningful form. But Isabella Rodriguez achieved something no law enforcement agency, no military operation, no government initiative had ever accomplished. She made the most dangerous criminals in North America afraid of a single nurse with a laptop and a mother's desperate love. Final accounting: $5.5 million stolen from killers, never recovered. $2.8 billion in cartel assets seized using her evidence. 847 lives saved directly by medical reforms her case inspired. Countless more saved by the destruction of cartel operations that could no longer launder money through hospitals. Isabella Rodriguez, wanted criminal, international hero, eternal ghost. The FBI case remains officially open, not because they expect to catch her, but because they hope she'll continue sending them intelligence on corruption and criminal activity. Sometimes the best law enforcement assets are the ones who operate completely outside the law. Subscribe if you've ever known someone who always seemed to have incredible luck when everything was falling apart around them. Tell us in the comments about that person who somehow always escaped impossible situations just when things looked hopeless. And like this video, if you've ever worked night shifts, you know there's something different about the world at 3 a.m. when everyone else is sleeping and anything seems possible. Sometimes the most amazing stories happen when the rest of the world isn't watching.